Hi guys, hope you're well. Welcome to DOdaily, Thursday Thoughts. It's Des here, live. Sorry I'm a little bit late. small technical issue there. I've not clicked the button to go live and start talking, but just proves anything can happen. Something always goes wrong, doesn't it? You know, what would a Thursday be without it? Anyway, really looking forward to tonight's episode. A little bit nervous. The subject, of course, we're talking about mental health. I've been putting it out through social media this week, asking people to ask me questions. It can be quite serious. They could have been quite deep. I've got a few to go at. I've also got a guest coming on, Rory from Light in the Shadows, a guy who's also set up a community interest company looking at men's mental health, but sort of getting into some of the key factors in what sort of puts people off, gets in the way, the barriers in stopping people talking. So I'm looking forward to speaking to him. I'm going to get him on shortly because he is a busy guy, as you'll see. He's taking some time out of his lunch break to help us, but that's really, he really wants to help, so that's really important, and I'm so grateful for him being involved. But before I get going, what I'll do is just let you know about my week so far. As I always do on a Thursday, we're sort of cracking on towards the weekend again, aren't we? You know, and sometimes as the week sort of builds, so does the feeling. You know, sometimes the tiredness and the busyness of everything can sort of get to us a little bit. So I'm just here to encourage you to stay on top of things. You know, using these different daily motivations each day. My week's been a little bit tricky, if I'm honest. I don't know why. And it's not a tedious link, but just feeling it, just from Sunday and Monday, you know, I've just started sort of worrying about what I'm doing. Am I doing the right thing? You know, trying to deliver a message here, trying to encourage people to stay on top of the situation. It's not always easy. It's not always the easiest to get people involved in, but it's important for me to keep doing it. It's important for me to remember why I do it, and through those moments of letting it get to me, I have to be strong, keep doing the things I do, keep getting out for a walk and a run. You know, the things I love doing. It's really important, isn't it? Just to remember what works, and the more we can do that, the more we can sort of bring ourselves back on a level. I got a few questions sort of around that as well. So what I'm going to do, like I say, Rory's a busy guy, so I'm going to sort of bring him in. I was actually interviewed by Rory for his YouTube channel a couple of months ago. So it's great to see you again, Rory. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely, mate. It's a pleasure. And as I say, as you alluded to, you came on mine back in September. We had an amazing run and chat. I don't know how we did it, but we pulled it off to jog, ran the Trent a few laps, and open up and talk about mental health. So thanks for having me on, mate. At least I could do.
I remember the chat. It was a bit windy, wasn't it? So we got the message across somehow, I think.
It was gale force. I had to have a bit of banter with the wind because it was absolutely horrific for the sound. So I had to just like put wind warning signs just to like make light of it. But deep down, I was fuming because I was like, I've got to get this out. And Des has spoke some amazing things. But yeah, we pushed through, mate. Show some resilience, big time.
Well, of course, I'll post a link to Rory's channel and to that particular episode in the comments. Like I say, Rory, thanks for coming on. Of course, you're doing some great work on two fronts, as you can see. So it's great to have you. I just wanted to bring a different face in. Of course, I'm trying to sort of pass on information, and like I say, through encouragement and inviting people to participate in activity and reaping the benefits that way. You do it slightly different. If you could just start by telling us why it's important for you to sort of do the things you're doing and what you are doing.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the key for any person is to have a happy and healthy life. Is you can do all the amazing things that part of do running and doing, which is to jog and to stay active. But I think if you don't sort your mess out that goes on in here in your mind as well, and learn and be a student of life, to be self-aware, you're always going to struggle no matter how fit you are, no matter how good your diet is. So yeah, I just think it's so important to be self-aware with your mental health, and it's always baby steps that work. So yeah, that's really my answer with that. I can allude to what I did within Light in the Shadows, but yeah, it's crucial, mate. Self-awareness is the start.
Of course, and you had a few, and I know you're quite prepared to be honest and open about your situation. You had a few difficult things. What sort of got you to this point? Are you happy to share
Yeah,
that?
cool. Yeah, and I think we had a chat, I think, a few days back, saying it's so important, like when you're trying to establish something in the community for the good of people, and you're trying to send a message out. It's no good me saying, oh, I'm going to speak out for men's mental health and support people when I'm not willing to open up. So for your followers and viewers, absolutely. 2020 was a really tough year for my wife and I. We were told by the NHS after waiting for 3.5 years for our own children that we pretty much can't conceive. Anyway, Cherise, my wife, she miraculously conceived December going into 2020. She sadly miscarried in February. So it's coming up to a year, like in the next couple of weeks. It's a pretty tough time, but that happened. Sadly, my stepsister took her own life. She was an NHS doctor 3 days after that. And I was waiting for this job to start, just going into the early March, late February. So I had 3 big whammies in a very short space of time. And I just got in a real dark place. I've never struggled with mental health much in my life, but my mind was being attacked with a lot of depressive thoughts, anxiety, and most certainly and prevalently was suicidal thoughts. So I've got no shame in sharing that with your viewers, but just to simply say, look, it's not a bad thing to feel those things, but if you hold them in and you're not self-aware, as I just alluded to, it can really lead you to a darker place. So yeah, mate.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Of course, that sounds horrific, and everybody who deals with mental health has got a different story, and that's quite an extreme case. Of course, whilst many will suffer severe things, lots suffer just a build up of small sort of things along the way, don't they? And we get ourselves to the same sort of place you mentioned there, and there's no disgrace in talking about it. Today in particular, we've mentioned it's Time to Talk Day, and whilst we can talk about these issues absolutely every day, that's what we try to do through the things we're doing ongoing. I think it's important to use such things to explain to people where we can be. Of course, you're doing many great things on the back of it. For want of a better word, you're pulling yourself through. You're getting yourself to a place where you can look back and almost take a positive from those situations, I guess. I'm sure I'm extremely proud of what you're doing. I'm looking in from afar, and I'm sure others are extremely proud of you. I know you've got a little bit of a network going with Enlighten the Shadows. Do you want to explain a little bit more about Enlighten the Shadows and what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. And I think you touched on 2 really big things there when you were talking, mate, for your viewers to really kind of try and comprehend for themselves is something called invalidation. I find, like, because my story came across like, oh shoot, like he's really laid it out there, and man, he's had it worse than me. I don't want your viewers to feel that way. I need to be really clear with mental health. It's very important that you don't invalidate your experiences and your suffering. So particularly a lot of men, what we do is we invalidate it by going, well, he's had it a lot worse than me. So, and they push it down and push it aside and just crack on and man up. And so I want to say, man or to a woman, anyone who's watching, it's important you don't invalidate your stuff, so you protect your mental health, so you can actually process what you're going through. Back to that self-awareness. So yeah, it's really important. But in terms of what Like the Shadows do, we always support men, not because we're misogynists, but I can't speak into a woman's life like a woman can. And I mentioned my stepsister's passing. That was actually the last thing that led me to do something like this. So yeah, I wanted to honor her memory by being the best to support men. We do that. We create weekly YouTube episodes from a plethora of guests. We've had doctors, we've had former MEPs, we've had Des Oldham, we've had some of my mates, working class people, men and women. So yeah, and what we do is we want to equip people in a non-threatening way behind a screen. They can just access it. And other ways we do supporting people is we've got a massive Facebook group that's just seen a lot of growth right now. We got about 380 odd people where you can find encouragement and some love and support. And basically, we got blokes opening up. It's just the most countercultural platform. It's such a safe place for blokes to just feel like they're not going to be judged or laughed at, and they always get poured out of support. So yeah, that's where we're at currently with what we do. We've got big plans for the future. So yeah, that's what we do, mate. It's exciting.
Well, I'm kind of glad you said that about the groups and how well they're doing. You know, I put out there this week, today in particular, for looking for questions and for all my social media following. You know, it's just proving the issue that there still is stigma behind the issue. You know, people are struggling to sort of get involved. You know, I ask people for questions every week and I get a varied response. But today's been particularly quiet. You know, eventually people have popped up with some questions, but it's just important to remember that it's so important to talk about it. Without you talking about it, without me talking about it the way I do, we'd still be in a place that we don't want to be. You know, I've made a note here to somehow crowbar into the conversation. If you broke your leg, you wouldn't keep doing the same thing, would you? You know, you wouldn't keep walking on it the same way. So, and I've said so many times through DOdaily that we call it mental health, we call it physical health. Ultimately, it's health, you know, and if we can start looking at it as health, you know, and part of something we have to nurture, you nurture a broken leg back to full fitness, you know, why can't we nurture and do things to sort our own mental health out, you know? And I think that's the important message when people get a little bit uptight around the issue, you know, because of those external factors. What we're saying here is nothing that's not been said before. You know, you look back to sort of old-fashioned theories and things like that, and people were saying it hundreds of years ago, but somehow the message still doesn't get across, does it?
It doesn't. And I think what the world needs is positivity and a non-threatening approach. I think, you know, blokes particularly will respond to a bit of banter and a bit of like forthcoming nature, but I think generally across the board, it's you showing empathy and you showing vulnerability, and it kind of like opens the door for others to feel that way. Like I'm a massive believer of not hanging your dirty laundry out to the world necessarily, but there's context to it. I think find yourself a circle. So when you have an ankle sprain, right? Some people ignore it, don't they? Some people, oh, I'll crack on, and then they make it worse. But you go to get your support mechanism. You go to a physio. You can go to your GP. If you've really sprained it badly, like I have in the past, you go to A&E. But isn't it interesting now when it comes to our mindset and our thinking? It's Thursday thoughts, as you say, and we kind of like fob it off a little bit and don't think much of it. But I think it goes back to what I said earlier. This self-awareness is massive, and talking about circles with your self-awareness. It's finding some confidence. I'm not talking about acquaintances. With your mental health, it's very, very crucial, I think, for people to seek out, who do I trust? Who can I trust with my precious, most vulnerable struggles? And again, whether you're a man or a woman, it's so important that you find your inner circle, because you know that they're not going to blabber your stuff. And I think particularly that's the British way, isn't it? We hold it in and get on with it. But actually, I've learned a problem shared is a problem halved. So yeah, it's so important that we treat physical and mental health the same. But yeah, we'll get there. Hopefully with people like you and I, encouraging in that kind of culture and reducing the stigma, it opens the door up. And we want to say to Des's followers and viewers, look, if you're struggling, just try and reach out. I know it's not easy, but it's the best thing you'll ever do all day long.
I think it's interesting what you say there about vulnerability, because I think one of the things I try to, without having without being trained in this thing, without knowing too much about mental health from a being taught point of view, you know, I work off my vulnerability. Like you say, it's not about hanging your dirty washing out. It's almost about just letting people know what it was like, you know, because it's something we all feel, you know, and there's different levels to it. I was thinking before, you know, part of you probably heard me say it about being this week, not feeling great. I'm particularly tired. I have to realise that tiredness is a state of mental health. You know, it's a state of mind. It's something that gets me sort of making bad decisions ultimately and taking me to a different place. So you just got to look after yourself, make sure you're okay. Of course, we encourage activity, fresh air, getting out in the daylight, all those things. It's important just to remember that. But it's great to have you on, Rory. I really enjoy sort of catching up and talking to you. And
yeah, it's a pleasure, man. I just quickly on what you said about it's very important. I think sometimes our body's so clever; it gives us little physical signs and warnings. So if you're feeling tired, lack of energy, not sleeping well, short-tempered, these can all be things related to actually what's going on upstairs. And it's not just my physical health. They're quite interlinked. So yeah, I just want to encourage people, just look out for the little signs and try and do your best to look after yourself ultimately. But it's been class coming on, as you say, bro. And anytime you need anything, just let me know. I'm always here for you, mate. And just want to quickly say to you, honoring you on your channel, I love your consistency and your passion to make Nottingham and this world a better place. Keep going. Don't be discouraged by numbers or followers, mate. Just keep working at it. You're an absolute beacon of light to this community. So just keep going, brother. And
you are, not just by the fact you're in that Illuminous jacket. Go and save Nottingham from the baddies.
Oh, bless you, mate.
All right, cheers, Rory.
See you, bud. See you, guys.
Thanks. So, guys, that was Rory. He's definitely got a story to tell. Hopefully, you was able to take something from that. It's not easy for us to do this sometimes, and I know it's definitely not easy, despite what he said there. He's probably had to tell that story numerous times, and it's never easy to repeat it. So it's just important to realise that people really want to help, people want to make a difference, and that's all I'm trying to do. You mentioned there the consistency, and that's one of the biggest compliments I can get, to be honest. One of the things I try to do through this is be consistent, is offer something slightly different, somewhere for people to check in on. Of course, I'd love people to come on at 6 o'clock. I'd love them to tune in every day at the same time. But all episodes are there. Like I say, we work off that different motivation. So, getting into the questions, we've already done a lot. You might want to get yourself a couple. This could be a long one. So, cracking on with some of the questions. The first question. Oh, what I will just say, just before we get into that, I touched on this in yesterday's episode. One of the reasons I do what I do was because of a guy who came to the running club right at the start of me sort of making huge changes in my life, creating a group, inviting people in to join us. I thought I'd turn the corner and got over all these issues and put mental health behind me. But one of the guys who come along, he really, really embraced it the way I saw it. He took it on board. And then 6 or 7 weeks in, he took his own life. And it hit me like a brick wall. It took me back to a place where I was really struggling. Of course, I wanted to carry on doing the things I was doing. But what I've tried to do from that day is almost maintain a legacy, keep his memory going, and make sure that doesn't happen again. And sometimes doing something like this, you'll get quite a lot of stick. People have got reasons why they think you do it. That you want to be popular, you want to be on TV, you want to be this, that, and the other. But believe me, the reason I want to do it is to ensure that nothing like that happens again. I said to Kay just before she went out for a walk, if I wanted to be popular, if I wanted to talk about something I knew much more about and be confident about, I'd do a football channel, or I'd talk about Coronation Street or whatever's in the news. I'm not particularly confident about what I'm talking about, but I know by being real, by getting people like Rory involved as well, we can be real in our approach and really help out. So that's just a little bit about why we're doing it, a little bit more about tonight. So getting into those questions. First one's from Simon, and basically says, do you think your personal circumstances being altered the way they were had an effect on your ability to source best headspace when dealing? So it's quite a long one. Best headspace required to deal with the rest of the situation. Basically, what Simon's talking about there is during lockdown, we kind of had the rug pulled from under our feet. We had to move from where we was living. There was doing lots of renovations to the building, and it was at the same time Kay got made redundant, and the thought of having nowhere to live and having no security to secure somewhere else really sort of got to us a little bit for a period of 4 or 5 weeks. We basically had 12 weeks to move, and we was on the clock trying to find somewhere. But without the security, I work part-time, of course, to try and sort of build DOdaily in the background. And without Kay having the security of a full-time job, we was facing a difficult situation. And I think what really sort of, what we did at that point was a lesson to me in the fact that I feel I'd come so far from where I'd been a couple of years ago. And even at the start of lockdown, lots of things have happened. We've not had an easy ride. And again, it doesn't have to be comparable to what Rory said or to what anybody else has had to deal with, but we've faced situations. My mum was particularly ill, and Kay unfortunately lost her granddad last week. So we've not had the easiest ride, but what we're not doing is feeling sorry for ourselves. We're not treating coronavirus like we're the only ones affected out there. There's lots more people who are getting really sort of badly affected. And what I can say, Simon, one thing that's really helped me is almost getting in touch with where I am on this mental health journey. By doing DOdaily, by being consistent and talking every day, I'm always, without purposely evaluating myself, I'm almost subconsciously evaluating where I am. I mentioned this week, about not feeling great. And I'll get up and go for a walk because I know that works, and it's not just going for a walk, it's getting away from all the hysteria on the TV, on social media. It's doing things I want to do. I was talking to a friend last week whilst out on a walk, and there was a little bit stressed out about the news and everybody's opinion. And basically what I said was, when I'm out for a walk, because I know I enjoy it, nothing can impact me. Nothing can impact me. And I think one of the biggest sort of triggers for mental health, and it's going to come in a little bit later in the question, is people. Other people's responses, other people's actions can quite often upset us. And of course, with this one in particular, somebody telling us we had to move out, we was worried, nothing quite pieced together. We felt like we was getting a bit lost in the system. It would have been better if Kate was furloughed rather than made redundant, but because she was made redundant, we didn't have that security of wage coming in. So we just had to sort of be strong, see it through, ride the storm a little bit. And ultimately, something fell into our lap almost. We got a new place, better than what we had before, as ideally suited for everything I do. I always talk about going around the river and having living close to water and the benefits to that. So I've still got that, and just by building up that resilience, by doing the things I do, by understanding where I am every day. I've said this to a few people. Since I started DOdaily, everything's just clicked. I completely understand myself. I completely understand what makes me tick, what I enjoy, and by knowing that, by knowing what can help me when I'm not feeling fantastic, when the bad thoughts get on top of me, I can just go out there and do it. I come back, I feel better. I understand the importance of sleep and eating and drinking the right things. I'm trying to introduce that all the time, and they're important as well, aren't they? So when you realise what works for you, it helps you build that resilience. And what I've found over time is that resilience building and helping me get through each one of these little hiccups as they come. But they're more than hiccups. They're upsetting and worrying situations. But if we see it as temporary, and we will get better, for each one of them, then we can sort of move on and understand that there'll be hiccups in the future. There'll be things to deal with and face. But if we know that, if we accept it, a lot of this is about acceptance and making yourself accountable. And that's what I try to sort of do by doing all those things I need to, by doing DOdaily every day at 6 o'clock, by talking about it, by offering my thoughts and opinions, and it's just helped me build that resilience. Hopefully that kind of answers that question. I'm trying not to give out too much because some of the questions kind of lead into the others, but hopefully that made sense. So thank you for the question, Simon. Question 2, when going for a walk, is there a type of setting you choose to suit your mental status at a particular time? This has come from Davna. I know Davna loves getting out there for a walk as well. And what she basically says, she sort of expanded on this, but I've shortened it down for the screen. She said that would I go off to sort of a secluded, quiet area? Might I walk around an industrial area? I think it's a great question, to be honest, because it's exactly something I do. I know when I'm tired in particular, and I know I need to get out there because it's not quite bedtime and I've got other things to do, but I need to sort of pick myself up. One of the reasons you'll see me walking around the river a lot, it's because it's what I know. So when I'm tired, my natural reaction is just to go to what I know. I know how long it takes. I know what time I can get back. I know where I'll be at certain points. If I can listen to something, I tend to listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of other people talking, just like Rory, all those kind of things. So I know what I can do, and it's easy. That's what I'm saying. So when I'm tired, it's an easy walk. I don't have to think about what I'm going. I don't have to think about where I'm turning. So I'll go to the river. When I'm really, really on top form, you'll find I go out and do really long walks. I'm trying to get even more from everything. I'm not just doing it because I feel I have to. I get out there and you'll see me, if you follow me on these recording apps, you'll perhaps see me wandering off 10 miles, and I'll be putting in the description, I've tried something new, and I've really enjoyed that, so that's probably when I'm on top form. And sometimes when I've just got to get it in, or it's late, not necessarily when I'm tired, but when it's late, when I'm struggling a little bit for time, I might walk locally. What I do like doing is taking pictures of what I'm doing. It's just another thing, just finding a positive out of it when it does get a bit sort of repetitive and monotonous. As much as I enjoy it, some days are difficult, so I'll take pictures, try and get a really good one, post them up on social media, get people sort of talking about them and looking at them. And sometimes that means taking pictures of building sites, football grounds, all these kind of things that we don't always naturally think of as being amazing, but just trying to find a way to make it work for me. So definitely, in response to that question, I definitely think about where I'm going. Like I say, I kind of go into default mode when I'm tired. When I'm really on top of the situation, when I'm feeling fit and strong, you'll see me on a big long walk, going somewhere different. And then when I've got to fit it in, I enjoy going around the industrial places, because it's always about picking out something new. And you can't always do that in the secluded places when it's dark, when it's late, so it's important for me to do that. So thank you for that question, Davna. Moving on to question 3. Dawn says, what are the triggers? How do you know that your mental health isn't where it should be? Well, I've touched on this quite a bit already, and it's a great question, by the way. This week, I mentioned at the start of the week, there's been a gradual build-up, and whilst I can now keep on top of it because of that resilience, because of knowing what works for me, understanding how I've done certain things, I know when I'm tired, that's a real trigger for me. I make poor decisions. I spoke a lot about eating and drinking, and I went all the way through January without eating meat and drinking alcohol. And I'm not just doing that just to say, look at me, I've lost this weight. I'm doing it because I know the impact that these things have on the decisions we make going forward. I know when I have a drink, sometimes I want another drink because I enjoy it. And we all know what happens with drink, you end up having more. But the same tends to happen with the bad foods. You reach out for the chocolate, the cakes, the sweets. And again, it's not good, is it? If you keep doing it. Don't get me wrong, you're absolutely allowed to treat. One way me and Kay got through January was to treat herself with a breakfast cob on Monday morning. It was fantastic. Really, really, really enjoyed it. But then by being tired, I started thinking over Monday, perhaps that was the one thing that set me off. I felt sluggish the rest of that day, and it's really built up. But what I also touched on there, Dawn, was the fact that I think the biggest trigger in mental health, and I might be wrong, I'm no expert, I always say that, is actually people, and how people respond to things. As much as I like to say that other people don't bother me, that I don't worry about what they say, the type of person I am, I want to help, I want to do things different, I want to help people get better, I want to let people understand what's available, so when they don't take to it too well, when they don't take to me too well, it does bother me. One thing I am learning is to deal with that a lot better and a lot quicker. what it used to do was get me into a slump, you know, get me really fed up, get me questioning myself, get me worrying about whether I've got that capability. Again, one of the things why I think DOdaily's work for me in particular is to make me realise that I've got that determination to keep pushing forward, to keep pushing on, to keep doing the things I want to do. So when people do upset me, question me, they might want to distract from what I'm actually doing. But what I tend to do is just really find this determination again. I'm getting a little bit repetitive now, but go back to all those things that work: running, walking, you know, doing the DOdaily episode. I wasn't in the best frame of mind an hour ago. I was really nervous about what we're talking about and trying to put a message across. So it's important for me to just realise that I can't let people bother me too much. Do you know, I remove myself from situations now I didn't used to. I'd want to sort of feel like I was part of everything. And whilst, of course, DOdaily is all about community, all about encouragement, and what we're always spoken about with his groups, it's all about togetherness. You have to look after yourself as well. Do you know, if you put yourself first, sometimes it's so important in setting the example, I guess, to others, you know, showing people that you're determined to sort of sort your own shit out, for the want of a better word, you know, be strong, get through it, you know, and there's nothing wrong with saying be strong. It's not weak to be upset. It's actually strong to realise that, you know, it's strong to realise that you are in a bad place and you need to sort of pull yourself into a position where you can do things. And for me, that's just doing all those things I've already mentioned. It's just a case of getting back to that sort of point of determination of wanting to do the things and remembering why I do them and seeing people get benefit from it. That's so important. And I don't want this to be negative, but all of us have got a knockers in what we do, and people want to sort of distract from the reality of what you're trying to achieve. But it's just important to remember why it's important for you. Almost remember where you was. Spent a lot of time thinking about the last 5 years, and I am going to come on to my own journey, which I don't talk about too much. You know, I've touched on it through time, but I'm going to come on to that slightly. And it's just thinking about where I've come from. Ultimately, whilst I got a little bit down, you know, remembered a lot of bad stuff, it's actually pulled me out of it now. I'm actually feeling like I'm working to a purpose, doing what I need to do, you know, and getting back on top of the situation. So thanks for the question. Next one, what effect do you think social media has on mental health? This is from Dave. Well, what effect do I think social media has? It has a massive effect, but I firmly believe it doesn't have to. You know, social media can be absolutely fantastic, and much of what I do, one, because I'm not absolutely minted, you know, it's a free resource for me to use to get a message across. I'm sure Rory's in agreement. He does a lot of his things through YouTube, through Instagram and those such things. Social media doesn't have to be negative. People use social media. Social media doesn't do anything. It's all controlled by human beings, you know. So it's important, if you're using it, for me, to be positive. You know, just take your positivity from everyday life and take it onto social media. I get stick for what I put on here. He is again telling us about his running, telling us about Forest winning again, telling us about this. You know, they're the things I love. They're the things I enjoy. You don't want me on social media. If you come to watch DOdaily, you kind of understand what it's going to be. You know what it's about. You don't want me on Facebook telling you I've had a shit day, because nobody wants to hear that. You know, we can, if we want doom and gloom, we can switch on the news. And we don't really have to do that. We can take ourselves away from it. It's like what I said about going out for a walk. When I go out for a walk, I know I'm creating a positive situation. Do you know? And what I tend to do on social media, without trying to be too happy clappy, if I don't like a post, I'll like a post. Do you know? And everybody, as much as people say, oh, we just do it for the likes, we just do it for that. Why can't we do something positive? Why can't we like a post if we think it's a nice picture? Do you know, unless it offends me, that's what I'm trying to say. Unless it offends me, I like everything because I want to see people doing well. I want to encourage people in because they're putting on what they want to put on. You often see people saying, "Oh, they're putting that on again," and yes, it can be frustrating. We all have our little moans, and we all sort of get frustrated with this or that. But ultimately, we can hit the unfollow button. Do you know? We can unlike, well, not unlike, but we can remove that source of negativity. Do you know? I'll be honest with you, I've taken myself out of some WhatsApp groups, you know, and I've considered taking myself out of even more at times, you know, because negative conversation builds, and that's not what I'm there to do. I want to encourage people to take part in things, to get the most from running. Do you know, I absolutely love running. It's my main passion right now. That and football, of course. I can do running for myself, so I can control that. So you will see when I'm proud of myself, when I feel like I've achieved something, I'm not ashamed to sort of put that out there. If I know somebody somewhere will take something from it, somebody will think that might just get somebody up off the sofa, it might just get somebody out. And, you know, I know just from going for that very first run, it changed my life. You know, it was the best decision I ever made. I've said that lots and lots of times. So whilst it does massively have a negative effect on some people, what you've got to realise is use it for exactly why you need to use it. Do you know, if people are upsetting you, it's unfortunate, but unfollow them. Do you know, we can't be surrounded by that negativity if we're not in a fantastic place. By all means, if you're in a fantastic place and you want to keep seeing that kind of thing, you want to watch the news, you want to do all these things that well, the news and social media on a negative side is almost sensationalization, isn't it? And we don't need that kind of high and low when we're not in a great place. Like I say, if we are in a great place, you know, it's a fantastic place to be, isn't it? Do you know, the running community is amazing for it. People post up such great things. As long as people aren't being particularly competitive, slight competition's okay. Do you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm very competitive with myself. I might use what other people have done, but I won't use it against them. Do you know? So it's just about trying to sort of take encouragement from it. Do you know, like I say, I like everything everyone does. Some people might say that's happy clappy and a bit wishy-washy, but as long as it doesn't offend me, do you know, I'm with you. I want you to sort of thrive in what you're doing. Do you know, if somebody puts on there they've lost 4 pounds, do you know, I love it. I like it. It's amazing. If they put on there that they've run a 45-minute 5K and it's the fastest they've ever done, the first time they've ever done it, that's amazing as well. Do you know, whatever people use it for the positive. It's the worst place in the world when you're not feeling great. Believe me, I've been there. I've made all the comments, you know, and they'll still creep through, do you know? And yeah, again, it's about going back to what Rory said about being self-aware and being aware of what's going on in your head. You know when you're saying the wrong thing. You know what people mean by certain things. Some days you'll look at something and you'll laugh it off. Another day you'll look at exactly the same thing and you'll be upset. You'll be in floods of tears. Do you know? It's just about sort of weighing it up. And if it's not working from you, get rid of it. Do you know? If it's not working, get rid of it. But again, it's controlled by us as individuals. We can control who we see. We can control who we're friends with. Do you know? So I think it's amazing. I think social media for me in terms of mental health has done so much more than any other resource could. Do you know, I haven't got lots and lots of money to make a big glossy magazine or posters or things like that. So using social media, connecting with people in such a way, and of course through the pandemic, what would we do without it? Do you know, it's harsh that we have to realize that our only way of connecting these days is through social media and these kind of things, but it is the reality, do you know, and without it, we'd be in a mess, wouldn't we? How would we be dealing with things then? So whilst we think people are upsetting us, do you know, and saying the wrong thing and getting bogged down, do you know, without that, without any connection, believe me, when you don't feel you've got people around you, that is the worst possible place to be. And I will come to that very shortly. That's somewhere I can tell you my own experience, you know, of feeling like there was no one around. But thanks for the question, Dave, a great one. And the final question, one more than normal this week before I get going. Told you to get the coffee. What's your experience and support from a GP with mental health? Well, I've spoken already, and I've said I'm going to speak more about it. Over the last 8 years, I've suffered. I've suffered as much as I ever have. You know, 2012. Everything was going along quite well. You know, I was 32. I'd got a good job, well-paid job with a ridiculous amount of earning potential. You know, I'd been in a relationship for 5 years. You know, and for one reason or another, that come to an end. You know, it was a bit of a mess when it came to an end. You know, it was a bad situation, which because I was in charge, you know, I was a little bit naive. I was pressured into do certain things I didn't really want to. And I'm not going to talk about this side of things too much because it involves other people. But I was put in a predicament, and I held my hands up. Ultimately, a decision was mine, you know, where I'd been pressured into do things I didn't really want to do. You know, I ended up sort of coming away from that job, you know, and it knocked my confidence for 6. You know, I'd done well very quickly. I was quite young for my position, you know, and I just lived life comfortably. I didn't want too much from life. I just wanted a normal existence, you know, just a pleasant life. I'd been with the same person for quite a while. You know, things were ticking along nicely, you know, and it was a situation that sort of grew up out of nothing and was quickly over, and I didn't work there anymore, you know, and it was okay, you know, it was upsetting. It was a stressful situation. But naively, I spoke to people about that, and I ended up going into another job, you know, and somebody gave me a job very quickly. They understood my predicament, you know, and I was bullied basically because they'd given me a job. You know, they wanted to treat me the way they wanted to treat me, and it really, really knocked my confidence. For 6 months, I was in this position, and it really, really knocked me for 6. You know, ultimately, it led to me losing everything, you know. So from having a well-paid job, money to do all the things I wanted, I ended up losing the relationship. Again, I don't particularly regret that, although the girl was lovely, you know, she was kind, it just wasn't right, you know, and I got to a position where that was over. I ended up trying to live in a house I couldn't afford to pay for, you know, and I was just spiraling out of control. You know, I was 32, and what Rory talks about with men and having to deal with men's mental health, I had nowhere to turn. Again, rather naively, I told all my friends the situation. Nobody was really interested. No one was really bothered. Where I come from, it's kind of a tough upbringing. You know, you don't talk about these kind of things. You just get on with it. You know, but I was really sort of spiraling out of control. I felt alone. I felt really, really low. And I was going back to an empty house, you know, from a job. I come out of this job, I was being bullied, and I went to another one, and it was asking me to work for less than minimum wage, you know. And they actually asked me to claim benefit, which I didn't do. And I was really struggling. I was in a mess. You know, people was asking me to do things. I'm not blaming everybody else. You know, I was lacking in confidence. I was spiraling out of control. I look back at it now, and I remember an occasion where I was walking through Nottingham city centre in broad daylight, crying my eyes out, you know, and people were just looking at me. And it got that low, and I've never admitted that before, you know. I've only told Kay about half an hour ago, and I was walking through town just thinking, what do I do? Where do I go? And I look back now, and I think the only option for me there was to go homeless. I couldn't afford to stay where I was, you know. I couldn't. And I look at these people, and this is what gave me the drive. This is why it's important for me to talk. Whilst I'm not articulate, whilst I can't get the message across the way I want to, you know, this is why it's important for me, because I'll walk through town now and I'll see people my age, you know. What Rory's doing is absolutely fantastic, you know, because there is a problem with men of a certain age. but I was really, really struggling at that point, and to be in a position where I've been a leader, I've captained teams, I was team leader in terms of organising all my mates, going on stag do's, doing this, to be in a position where you feel like you've got nowhere to turn, because of the environment you've been brought up in, because of the people around you are not really that interested. One of my best mates at the time was actually my ex-girlfriend's brother-in-law, so it just didn't quite work. It just seemed like everything was going the wrong way, nothing was quite kind of working out. People were using me and abusing me because I was desperate. When I went into these jobs, I was absolutely desperate to do well, but because they'd kind of given me a job and given me a chance, it was just like, well, they'll treat me how they want to treat me and it doesn't matter, and I got to that point, and it's important to do this if you have to. I found a number for the Samaritans. I seen it on a bus stop, I think, and I looked, and it was at that point where I thought, you need to sort this out. You need to sort this shit out, because, like I say, all I was doing was spiraling out of control. My mood, I didn't want to come out of rooms when I was at home, and I ended up, somehow I ended up getting in touch with an agency, getting a job. It was way below the level I wanted to be at, and it's affected me. It's still affecting me now because my confidence has shot. And I went to work in this job, and there were people there who was into running, and just going back slightly to the point where I thought I had to sort this out. Ultimately, I got home that day and I thought, what can I do? And I remembered something somebody had said to me about lose 2 stone and your confidence will just improve. And I say a lot about, if you're feeling low, just make sure you get some sleep. Make sure you get some sleep. Just these little things that we know work, but just help, just buy you that little bit of time. So I thought to myself, one thing, for all that, I wasn't perfect. I wasn't an angel going through all that situation, particularly with the first job, particularly with the relationship. I wasn't as committed as I should have been. One thing I thought to myself was, you've got nothing to lose sleep about. I had to dig deep and think, whilst things haven't happened the way they should all the way through, I've got nothing to be ashamed of. People were labeling stuff at me and treating me in a certain way, but I had to think, only you can sort this out now. And that's where I was. I did contemplate ringing the Samaritans. I did go to the doctors, and this is a long way of answering Hannah's question, but they did prescribe me antidepressants, but I've never ever taken an antidepressant. Somehow I found the determination to chuck them in the bin. Before all of that situation, I've never been heavily reliant on medication. I don't know why. I don't know what made me that way. But one of the things I was really adamant was I was going to drag myself out of it and find some determination. So like now, when I feel hard done to, because I still do, it still affects me now. I've still not got the job I want. I still feel like I'm not getting the breaks I want. I won't say deserve, because nobody deserves anything in life. You have to make your own luck somehow. You have to find a way of dealing with it. You have to fight through the situations. Use the small things. Sleeping, there was a point where I was just sleeping, waking up, sleeping, but that was getting me through a day, and every day gets that slight bit better. Ultimately, I got this job. The house had gone. I had to move home with my parents. And that was a tough environment to be in, because again, I felt like I'd been hard done to. I felt like people weren't understanding me. I felt like it wasn't something I was going to get through, but I had to keep doing it. I got this job through an agency. I had to be humble enough to accept it, turn up to it. Ultimately, I was working with young people, who was I felt I could have been doing a lot better, but I had to sort of get my head down, get through it. There was a lot that was in the NHS. There was a lot of health conscious people. I was thinking about weight, took up running. You start talking to people on the same level, about the same things, building a new circle of support. Went along to park run, an absolute game changer for me. I was still running for the sake of losing weight. I went there, saw other people doing it for enjoyment. So at that point, I was still living on my own, still waking up, working, going home on my own, feeling sorry for myself. But at the weekend, I had somewhere to go and do a park run, and it changed everything, because then you start talking to people there. Then I decided I wanted to do something for charity, whilst my own house wasn't particularly in order. And this is something I say all the time, it's about helping others. It's so important to help others, to help yourself. Because when I did that charity event, we raised a lot of money for Prostate Cancer UK. Lots of people got on board. I met 30, 40 new people who instantly became a group of friends, formed a running club, and then the rest is history. And I think that's kind of where I got to. And I've never said that about walking through Nottingham before. I've mentioned it got low, and I can explain that much better if I had the time. I'm trying to rush because I appreciate I've already been talking for quite some time. But the support from the GP, in all reality, when I went, wasn't there. I felt I was being treated as a man of a certain age. I know others that have gone and got better support than that. I think the reason Hannah mentioned it is because she had a call recently to discuss it. And she says, is that the norm? I don't know, to be honest. I'd imagine they're making a bit of an effort with the COVID situation and perhaps getting in touch, with people who might have discussed it in the past. But for me personally, not really had a great deal of support. I felt that I was a little bit ignored. I felt like I was getting lost in the system. So it's important to sort of sometimes dig deep, realise how you can help yourself, realise who can help you as well. Whilst I didn't feel comfortable in that new working environment at such a level, there were people there who were running, who I could talk to, who I could start relating to. I learned at that job in particular from the outset that when you're on your own, when you're not talking, you kind of lose your social skills. So I'd go home, I'd sit there on my own, all my friends are off being married and doing all nice things, going on holiday. And I was sat at home, and then you get up in the morning and you'd be like, I've not spoke to anybody for 16 hours, and it'd be a bit bizarre. It'd take you a bit of time to get used to things. But once I'd broken those barriers again, once I'd got that familiarity with people, I kind of went back to the person I was. It brought a lot out in me, and it helped me move forward. And those people will probably never understand that, but now I can reflect on that. I can look at that journey and understand I've made massive steps and really sort of to get to the point I want to talk about it and do things about it and get involved with the likes of Rory and all the guys that do running, and everybody who supports. It's absolutely fantastic to be able to give something back, to understand what you feel is a purpose, and work hard at it, and not be put off. Like I say, we all have a moments. I think sometimes, because now I understand where I was, I understand the journey, I understand what makes me better, that it's easy for me to slump into it sometimes. When the first time you get to that point, when you start hitting rock bottom, you don't know it's happening. You absolutely don't know what's going off. But now I can kind of measure it and think, right, this is where I've got to click in. This is where I've got to go again. This is where I've got to do all the things that I've picked up over time. And that's the way I cope with it. It's that resilience I spoke about in the very first question from Simon. It's about just pushing on, understanding what works, using all the resources available. I've not got all the resources I need to do the things, but I find a way to do it. I do my best with what I've got. I do my best with my vulnerability, my own story, my own experience, and that's all I'm trying to do. So if anybody does want to sort of have a pop, this is exactly why I do it. I'm honest. I try to be relatable. You know, the message isn't clear. I understand that. But what the message is, it's me. It's me saying it as it is. It's me trying to help. So please, guys, get talking. That's the key thing today, isn't it? Keep talking to each other. Keep looking at what you can do to improve the situation. Keep the connection going. Social media is so important right now. Don't be put off by it. I have my moments. I'll see someone in a WhatsApp group and say, fuck that, I can't be asked anymore, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, it's important, isn't it? It's a key tool for us to use and take forward. You know, there's a lot to go out there, a lot said, a lot of negativity, a lot of bad situations. Once again, I'd like to thank Rory for his input. I can't thank him enough for taking his time off his break. You know, and if somebody's prepared to do that, you know, they're absolutely determined to get some results, aren't they? And that's all we're determined to do. What I want to do is encourage it through activity and participation. Of course, Monday to Friday, I'm on at 6. Friday morning, I'm on at whatever time it decides to upload. I try to do it for 7, 8 o'clock. The dark mornings aren't helping at the minute either. It seems to take forever. But I'll be back in the morning, wake up to walk, you know, and however I'm feeling throughout the week, I'd love to be able to wake up to walk every day, because it's absolutely fantastic. It puts me in a great frame of mind. You know, it picks me up. It gives me that extra 10, 15% to really sort of look forward to the weekend and look forward to the things I enjoy. Forget about all that negativity. Forget about all the crap that's going on in the world. You know, for all of this, I spoke about resources and what's available to me. You know, I don't want to beat myself up. I don't want to sort of tell people what I have and haven't got. I haven't got much, but what I have got, I enjoy. And when you start enjoying the things you've got, rather than striving for happiness, you know, you'll get there. It'll all click and you'll enjoy it. Just to end on a positive, and hopefully this has encouraged you to get involved a lot more. You know, like I say, it's a tough battle, you know, getting people. And I understand that, you know, it's not always the easiest subject. You know, people are going to be a little bit sort of coy and a little bit insular with the whole thing. But we'll have a throwback question. If you're prepared to answer, what is your best coping mechanism to get back on top of mental health? If you can add it to the comments, I'm going to add those links in to Rory's channel, to the interview with myself. If you can add some comments about what works for you, just one thing. You know, it doesn't have to reveal your problems. It doesn't have to reveal anything too much. It just might help somebody else going forward. Someone might pick that up and think, I'll try that, you know. And that's how we learn, isn't it? By looking in at what other people are doing, seeing what works. Like I say, most of these theories have been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. People far less educated than us understood it a lot better than us, you know. So it's important to remember that, you know, and when you really sort of realise that, you know, it all clicks into place, and I can assure you, you'll start getting a lot more enjoyment from things. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. There's a lot to go out there. I feel like I'm knackered. I feel stressed out just doing it. But if you've got any questions about absolutely anything, of course, most weeks it's a mix and match of this, that, and the other. Please post them in the comments on any of the videos, any of the social media posts. I'll be all over that. You know, it's my best tool. Please post them in. Be back in the morning. Email des@dorunning.org.uk. I'll be back for Wake Up to Walk. Please like, subscribe, encourage your mates to do that. I'm trying to build this thing, you know, and if you didn't get something from it, somebody else might. We all know somebody who's not quite in the place they should be. So let's make an effort today to help them the best we can. And hopefully myself and Rory beforehand has done that. So until tomorrow, guys, have a good evening. Try and digest some of that. You know, I'll be back bright and early, somewhere different, making the most of the fresh air. Have a good night. Just doing it.